Welcome to Close Listening. I'm Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. And today I wanted to take my time to pay my respects to an important musical figure who has just gone up to the great gig in the sky. And I am, of course, talking about Meat Loaf. So he was someone who came into my life about 5 years ago. I'd moved to a different city, Montreal, than the one I'd grown up in for the first time in my life. I'd gone there to go to school, but it meant I was alone. My family wasn't there, my partner wasn't there, none of the people I'd been used to live with. For the first time, I really felt I'm on my own. Now, I'm not someone who can deal with loneliness quietly. And what does that mean? It means I have a lot of intense monologues raging inside my head. I need some sort of drama in my life to make up for those loneliness. And so I have these inner monologues raging in my head that turn into my own creative ideas for movies and stories and songs. And the only way to keep that imagination under control is to listen to and get really into other people's art. So it doesn't surprise me that years after having first heard of it, I decided to finally listen in full to an absolutely iconic song that could, really bring some intensity into my head. And that song was, I could do anything for love, but I won't do that. No, 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 I won't do that. I could do anything for love. So anyway, I've been curious about that song for years, having heard it quoted in various contexts, including Rick Miller's amazing rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody, where he does something like 25 different voices. So it's 2016. I finally looked up the song, and it just had wonderful intensity to it. It has operatic vocals, quotable as silly lyrics, and instrumentation that struck the perfect balance between the lush stuff that I liked in performers like Neil Diamond and a real rock and roll edge. It helped fill that lonely void in my head. When I took lonely walks through the Montreal Eaton Center or not always exciting drudges to my classes, I could walk with fiery intensity in my head of, and sometimes you breathe in fire, and some nights are carved in ice, and some nights are not nothing you've seen before or seen again. So after discovering and, really getting into I Will Do Anything for Love, I found what I suppose is Meat Loaf's next most iconic song, Paradise by the Dashboard Light. So for those who don't know it, this song is an homage to the 1950s aesthetic, though, unlike your 1 minute, 59-second 50s songs, 7 minutes, something long. But, my first musical heroes were the stars of the 50s, Elvis, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, Johnny Cash. And the song is about a teenager's first time and plays campily with stereotypes about the different ways males and females think about sex versus love. Men just want sex. Women want to know, will you love me forever? And again, this is a rare time in my adult life when I was lonely, and listening to a song about falling in love in a way that was charged yet ultimately silly spoke a little bit to that part of me that was genuinely lonely and in need of some human and romantic connection and wanting someone to love me forever. And also, again, to that part of me that just needed something rock and roll in the background. I was trying to make my dull walks down the street more of a determined dance. Another thing that spoke to me about Meat Loaf is he's always struck me as being queer-coded without being queer-coded. And I know that might not make sense to a lot of people, but it's kind of how I see myself. So technically speaking, I'm straight. I'm a cis male who is attracted to women. Yet the more complicated facts are that I don't generally feel like one of the bros. I'd rather be that campy musical theater guy than the cool kid on his motorcycle. And I guess seeing Meat Loaf, this fat, long-haired, doe-eyed guy with makeup playing characters who were straight, but in a melodramatic, campy musical theater kind of way, felt like the perfect embodiment of my misfit kind of identity. A great example of it is the opening monologue before the song. You took the words right out of my mouth. On the surface, it, sounds a bit aggressively masculine. Would you offer your throat to the wolf with the red, red roses? I bet you say that to all the boys. But again, it's so exaggerated and silly that becomes a parody of boring, patriarchal straightness and becomes this silly, campy musical theater straightness that I could identify with. So Halloween is always an important holiday for me. And luckily, I found something to do Halloween in Montreal, and that was going to a midnight showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Again, a queer-coded cultural touchstone. And there again, not for too long in this musical, but for a moment, for one really rockin' song, there was Meat Loaf, and he's dressed as the 1950s rockabilly. So again, he might be the straight guy in this movie, but a straight guy adjacent to this bigger, anti-heteronormative, queer-coded, absurdist, twisted, campy musical singing, "Hop through there, bless my soul, I really love that rock and roll." By the time I discovered Meat Loaf, it was unfortunately, a bit late to see him in concert. I've been lucky in that I've been able to see a lot of my musical heroes from the 60s and 70s live in concert. So I think he basically lost his ability to sing with that dynamic voice by the time I discovered him. I did get to see him live once, but really only as a public speaker. He'd come to my hometown of Toronto to promote the new musical based on the music Jim Steinman wrote and he recorded for the Bad Out of Hell album. So mostly the actual singing at this performance, which was great, was done by the actors in the show. But I did technically get to see Meat Loaf sing because he had his microphone, and when they were singing Dead Ringer for Love, this, horn-drenched bopper that he sang as a duet with Cher once upon a time, he held a microphone and did his best to sing the backup vocals. Ooh, a diddy wabba, ooh, a diddy wawa. So I guess the one complicated thing about my relationship with Meat Loaf is that he almost became my drug. I don't do any other kind of drugs. I don't drink, I don't smoke pot, let alone anything more dangerous. And because I had this ambivalence on a lot of days about going to school, it was served a purpose for the job I wanted, but I wasn't thrilled by every class. I didn't always have the energy after a note of open mics. So especially a day after weekends where I hadn't hung out with anyone, where everyone was too busy being serious and studying to have any friends, I just needed musical friends. I needed musical intensity to, motivate me to get out of bed. And eventually it got to a point where I couldn't get out of bed and walk to school without hearing songs like with the intensity of Bad Out of Hell or 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad, or I couldn't have said it better myself, blazing in my headphones. I eventually channeled those feelings into one of my own songs called Too Many Trumpets. And I can't wait to share that song with you in the near future. At the time I wrote the song, I kind of wanted it to sound like Meat Loaf and a little bit Neil Diamond as well, but I simply don't have the operatic vocals to imitate the Meat Loaf singing sound, or the great band to imitate his rockin' lush band sound, let alone an excellent backup singing or duet partner like Cher or Ellen Foley. So in short, there are other performers whose whole catalogs I know better than Meat Loaf. One thing I feel ashamed of, now that he's gone, is that maybe I didn't know that many of his songs. But he is that one singer whose impact on me I can so easily put into words. His performances were electric. As I said, they became a drug to me. I became so enamored with the songs I would desperately try to sing these songs with Meat Loaf's huge vocal range, like Bad Out of Hell at karaoke bars, even though I couldn't really do it. I became subsumed by their power when, I couldn't walk down the street without having to hear them. And, maybe he ruined, less intense singers for me, but that's quite the contribution to my time in school. He helped me get through some hard times. So thanks for the music, Meat, and thanks for the music, Jim Steinman. You both are sorely missed. And I hope your songs will keep rising up like a bat out of hell, like a bat out of hell.